Don't call this a comeback. It's hardly a comeback if you're never gone. G'day, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tips and Predictions here on The Casual Athlete. I am your host, Burgz, and what a week round 10 was. Comebacks galore, upsets galore, and if you got more than 5 or 6 out of 8 tips correct this week, then you are an absolute champion, and I want to hear about it down in the comment section below. We have round 11 up on the card this week, but before we get into my review and round 11 tips, just a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, so make sure that you hit that like button and hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Now, guys, let's have a look at how I did last week, and as I have said before, I got 4 out of 8 tips correct this week, and I will take that. We started off on Thursday night with the Eels taking on the Dolphins. Now, I thought the Eels were the better team in this game, but the Dolphins managed to come away with a pretty grindy, pretty boring victory, if you ask me. I really didn't like the kind of football that the Dolphins were playing in this one, but it got the job done, and Herbie Farnworth definitely gets a special mention from me. He had an outstanding game and a great individual effort to set up the victory for the Dolphins. Titans, I said it before and I'll say it again, I don't like this Knights team at all. And at home, I didn't care that they were coming up against a team that had lost 5 in a row. They were staring down the barrel of a 20-point deficit and a 6th straight loss in a row. And the Titans finally responded. They dug their heels in deep, and Tino led them with ferocity. He is an outstanding player. I can't wait to see what he does at Origin, having missed him from that arena last season. Now, this Broncos side, I'm not exactly sure what's happening to them right now. 2 weeks ago, they were being talked about as the team to beat. They could possibly go on to win the grand final this year, and the hype train was way too big for them. I thought they'd come back in this one, considering the Rabbitos have 10 guys sitting on their casualty ward at the moment, but it wasn't to be for the Broncos, as Latrell Mitchell put on a masterclass, and the Broncos slumped to a 2nd straight defeat. And to make matters worse, Ben Hunt has also injured his hamstring, but they do have Ezra Mam possibly coming back into the side next week. And the Dogs, what a comeback that was. Absolutely outstanding scenes. Obviously, one side of Canberra Stadium got more action than the other. 52 points at one end of the field. It just boggles belief as to what the Dogs were able to do in the second half against Canberra. Canberra, a team who everyone has been talking about lately. Once again, the hype train. Don't get behind these teams, because they show us who they really are more often than not, quicker than you probably want them to. And the Faders came back to play, and it cost them in this game, unfortunately. The Dogs getting a big win there. And then we had St George, and I like St George at the moment, but I just find them losing these really close games. And you could say the thing about the Warriors, that they've won 5 games by 8 points or less, and that is the difference between a good season and a bad season a lot of the time. If you win those close games, then you can be anywhere from that 4th to 10 category, and it basically is the difference between that many positions on the NRL ladder. And credit to the Warriors, I doubted them last week, but they have been playing some phenomenal football, but got run down again and nearly lost it again. But I love what Metcalf did. He applied some scoreboard pressure. He knew it was going to be a tight game, and the Dragons just didn't have enough gas in the tank to go with them in the end. That is the story there. Now the draw, the 30-all draw up at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Wow. I really thought that one team at least was going to get a point or score a try even in this 10 minutes of extra time. That did not happen. Both teams shut up shop, looking for the field goal. And to be fair, the Cowboys had more chances than Penrith to ice the game. And I like the Cowboys getting a point out of this one, considering we had to come back from 12 points down twice. But it's just not good enough. You're not going to win many games by conceding 30 points. We were lucky to be in it anyway. But if I'm a Panthers fan, geez, I'd be disappointed with only getting 1 point out of that one. The Storm got a massive win down at Amy Park, and to me that was expected. I feel like the Tigers haven't actually played that great opposition this year, and they came up against a team that knows how to play some pretty decent football, especially off a loss. And you could just tell right from the 4th minute when Pappenhausen scored that try that he had no right to score. you just knew that the Storm wanted it a little bit more than the Tigers. And for the Sharks, I was quietly confident going into this game. I think the Sharks slowly building once again. They did give up a lead once again and looked a bit shaky. I don't love what I see from them on the mental side of things still. I think they can be very easily exposed. And once Kohler finished off that intercept, I really thought it was going to turn around for the Sharks, and it did to a certain degree. But they managed to get a sketchy try from Graydon Trindle. Yes, he was following through on the play, and that's what you've got to do, but I don't love it from the Sharks at the moment. And yes, they ran away with it in the end of this game, but I think that's because Manly were trying to chance their arm just to get back into it, and they didn't make the right choices. But guys, 4 out of 8 tips correct this week. I'll take that. A lot of people I know got 3, 2 out of 8. I was so close to getting 5 out of 8 as well. But guys, I do love the banter in the comments. I know I haven't gotten 7 out of 8, 8 out of 8. A lot of people saying 8 out of 8 since last year. Guys, come on. I'm only human, and taking some upsets is what I do. I love taking upsets. So if you don't like taking upsets and you just want to sit here and watch some guy tip favorites every week, then there's no point in me doing this channel and no point in me doing this video. So guys, let's move on to round 11 tips. The first game of round 11 is up in Newcastle, where we have the Knights taking on the Parramatta Eels. Now, the Eels have won 3 out of their last 4 games at McDonald Jones Stadium. And in those games, the ones that the Eels have won, the Knights have only managed to score a total of 10 points. And I tell you what, that Knights prediction that I made earlier in the season for them to get the wooden spoon isn't looking too shabby at this point in time. And I know the Knights fans won't be too happy to admit that, but your team is in dire straits right now. They blow a 20-point lead, a complete capitulation. And I just don't see how anyone saw them making the 8 this year. I don't think that they have the right team structure. Ponga clearly was frustrated at the end of that game, and if that frustration builds, it could easily lead to him exiting earlier than expected. He is a bit of a temperamental figure, and so is his father as well. So I know they have Dylan Brown coming next year, and I don't love this match in terms of a tip either, because it could definitely go either way. On the Eels side of things, I think that they should have won the game last week. They played more exciting football than the Dolphins, but errors just came back to bite them in the end. And I think the Dolphins holding the ball and just completing sets was enough to beat the Eels. And I think if you do that, and if the Knights do that this week, they should come away with a victory. I'm sorry, Eels. I've tipped you 2 weeks in a row. I've expected 2 wins. I've gotten 2 losses, and I just can't bring myself to tip the Eels once again. I think the Knights bounce back from their horrible second half last week and get a win over the Eels. They've seemed to have a propensity to beat up on some pretty terrible sides this year. So let's go the Knights, 1-12. Second game of round 11 is at a core stadium, where the Dogs will be taking on the Roosters. Now, the Dogs, bit of a blow on the weekend, as the weak-gutted dog, Jamin Salmon, has seemingly broken his ankle, so he may be out for the next 10 weeks or so, and that definitely hurts their rotation a little bit. He has been playing, or starting even, in the lock position for them. No doubt they'll probably get Curtis Morin or maybe a Kurt Mann to fill in at lock. I like Kurt Mann filling in at lock. I think he's an outstanding utility player, but they do have a number of guys still out at this point in time as well. But you could say the same for the Roosters. They get Sandon Smith back this week, but Lindsay Collins isn't due to come back. Nat Butcher, we still don't have a timeline as to whether he's going to come back, and obviously Brandon Smith is playing with the reserve grade team, or training with the reserve grade team at the moment, and is waiting for his transfer to go through to the South Sydney Rabbitos. And as far as the tip is concerned, I love the Dogs stepping up with the host of players out. Crichton. Stephen Crichton. Now, if he isn't one of the first guys picked in your New South Wales Origin side, I'm afraid to tell you that you may need to go see a psychiatrist. At this point in time, I think Stephen Crichton is easily the best centre in the game. I don't care if you're going to put Turbo in there, and no doubt Laurie Daly has a propensity for Turbo. And no doubt Laurie Daly has an affiliation with Turbo. He had him in the team quite a lot when he was the coach way back when. And then I don't love the idea of putting Latrell over him, no doubt it'll probably be Critter and someone else. Like that is what you need to do at the moment. Crichton and then whoever else has that left side, because you can't move him at the moment. Easily the best defensive center in the game, and now he is starting to lead a team by example. I don't think that comeback on the weekend happens without Stephen Crichton's involvement. He took over the game from center. Like, not many players can do that, and Stephen Crichton is easily that guy at this point in time. Unfortunately, I don't love the Dogs this week, but I will tip them. I do think that they could be vulnerable against this Rooster side who can pack on the points when they want to, but they're a little shaky, the Roosters. They got to win at Magic Round, but we haven't seen them since then, and I love this dog side at the moment. I really love the energy they're working with, so let's go the Dogs, 1 to 12. Super Saturday up now, and the first game is between the Dolphins and the Warriors up at Redcliffe. And I thought the Dolphins were going through the motions a little bit last week, trying not to lose the game against Parramatta. Some individual efforts of what carried them across the line, but they really threw nothing at Parramatta, to tell you the truth. And I really thought they just relied on holding the ball and Parramatta making some errors for them to win that game. For the Warriors, they are getting away with everything at this point in time. I love it. I do love the Warriors as a franchise and a team. They are everyone's second team in the NRL, and I love seeing them do well. But how many games can they win by, 8 points or less? It's up to 5 now. They got away with a field goal last week. The week before it was a try. Like, it's just, how sustainable is it? They do get a couple of guys back this week. Fisher Harris and Tuivasa-Sheck are due to come back. The Dash brothers are ready to come back into the side. And I'm wondering whether that, because these guys have been playing so well while they've been out, does that help them or hinder them at this stage of the game? Because the rotations that they've been working with, Mitch Barnett has stepped up in a big way, and Metcalf, man, we should talk about Metcalf right now, has had a coming of age season to start this year. I thought, maybe a couple of years ago, he was only going to ever be this supporting six. He was pretty quick and he'd be able to finish off a couple of tries. His development didn't tell me that he was going to be one of the most outstanding halfbacks of the 2025 season. And I love that he has come to life in this season. I'm going to tip the Warriors this week. I think they've definitely earned that from me, especially. I just don't love what the Dolphins turned up last week. It's still a little bit, hunky-dory, like they're not really putting the foot down. I really thought that they could have put it to Parramatta, but they kind of just... Everyone keeps talking about Isaiah Katoa as well. I don't want to have a go at the kid, but I'm not really seeing too much. Like, in that game on the weekend, all I heard was analysts talking about Isaiah Katoa, and no doubt it's a pre-planned thing to talk about Isaiah Katoa. But some of his highlights were just him running to the line and passing to someone else, or him just passing the ball. Like, I don't really see what all the hype was, especially around that game. No doubt he's a good player and has been good this season, but that game specifically, I don't think so. Let's get on the Warriors this week. I actually think they get a pretty big win this week with the players coming back in. And unfortunately for the Dolphins, it's going to be another loss at home. Let's go the Warriors, 13 plus. Mid-afternoon, it is the Cowboys taking on the Manly Seagulls, and both of these teams put in interesting performances last week. I thought the Cowboys, not a lot went their way, but they managed to hang in the fight, and that is something that I have not seen from a Cowboys side when they get down under Todd Payten. We've either had this really dominant style where we've defended our way to victory, especially in that 2022 season, and then it's weird that my team is so well known for making comebacks, and I never feel like any lead is safe with my team behind at this point in time. And that's a great feeling as a Cowboys fan. But if there is one team that can go toe-to-toe with us in an absolute shootout and what will be probably a high-scoring game this week, it is the Manly Seagulls. And they already put a big score on us at Four Pines Park earlier this season. And they've also won their last 3 games at Queensland Country Bank Stadium as well. We actually have not beaten them since we opened that new stadium. We've not beaten them in the new stadium. And that to me is a sign that, maybe I need to go with the upset this week. And the upset tip is Manly. And it's 1 week before Origin. And no doubt Turbo will be looking to prove his fitness to be able to play Origin. If he's going to be any chance to be picked for New South Wales, he needs to play well this week. And with Cotter out, We'll probably still have Jason Taumalolo out as well. Like, I know he pulled out with a calf issue last week, but we almost didn't need him. But I think Manly are the same team that Penrith are. They've got a gun half, they've got great edges, a lot of speed, and it worries me a little bit because we're a speed team as well. But do we have as much speed as Manly do? Absolutely not. They have Saab, they have Kohler. I love Garrick, I love Olakau'atu, but it's not coming together for Manly at the moment. That's the thing I worry about them the most, is that they can't formulate attack well. They look clunky. We look great when it's all clicking together. But again, we have our drawbacks as well. So it's a really interesting game, really 50-50. I'm actually going to go the Seagulls this week. I just don't love the fact that they can pretty much match us toe to toe in what I expect to be a big high scoring shootout. I just think Manly have just more points in them. Expect another high scoring one, but Manly will get this one done. 1-12. The last game of Super Saturday takes place at Shark Park, where we have the Sharks taking on the Melbourne Storm. Now, interesting thing to note is that the Storm haven't beaten the Sharks at Shark Park since 2017. So history is on their side in this fixture for the Sharkies, but they need to bring their A game this week. If they turn up and give up a lead or a kind of performance like the Tigers put in last week, then they are going to be dead sharks in the water. The Storm were fantastic last week, and they only get bolstered by the return of Harry Grant in this one. No doubt he'll be pushing himself to be fit for Origin 1, but yeah, there's a lot of players that have things to prove out there, and the Sharks get a couple of ins as well. They get Sifa Talakai back, which is good considering that I think Tommy Hazleton had an injury last week, and then Teague Wilton also comes back into the side, and Billy Burns has been an admirable replacement for him, but you go with Teague Wilton when you have him available. I thought Hines had his probably best game of the season last week. Really good in the opponent's half, setting up. He had a real organised look about him, and he set up their first two tries, really got him on the front foot, and he was taking the ball to the line. He was threatening with his running game. That's something that you don't see from Hines very often. And once he starts to build that confidence up again, then he can become the good, Dally M player that we've seen him be in the past. And that could really trouble Melbourne this week. I've got a big question mark on Melbourne, whether they might take the foot off the gas, considering that, they won by 64 last week. And, you probably think that Craig will be pretty happy with them. But we've seen Melbourne be a little bit inconsistent this year, especially then when they've been challenged a little bit. They can tend to go in their shell a lot. And I think the Sharks, if they can bring the best form of the Sharks to the field, then they can win this game. And I'm going to back them to do that. Let's get on the Sharks once again this week. I think they go to Shark Park and maintain the fortress. Let's go the Sharkies, 1-12. Three games on Sunday this week, and the first one is up at Suncorp, where the Broncos will be taking on the Dragons. Now, I don't want to dwell on this game too much, just because I don't really like what I'm seeing from either team at this point in time. I thought the Broncos, especially over the last 2 weeks, have just really dropped the ball. Figuratively and literally, they've put themselves in some very tough positions and just can't stop the rot. Really couldn't halt momentum against Penrith at Magic Round, and then last week, once the Rabbitos grabbed momentum, they did basically all to stop it. And I don't understand why this Broncos team is playing the way that they are, considering how good their team is on paper. But I suppose that's a question for maybe people further above my pay grade. And for the Dragons, you could say the same thing. They probably should have won the last two games that they've played. They've been in both games. They were winnable games. And for the Dragons, like, it's a little bit of a rebuilding process, as well as maybe trying to move on some of their older guys. I like the guys they're bringing through. Loco Pacific Tonga got his debut last week. He needs more minutes, in my opinion, to be effective. I love Hamish Stewart. I think that Dylan Egan is great. Lightning King Tonga has shown some promise as well. But then you got guys like Flanagan hanging around. You got Clammer, and Jack DeBellin had a pretty good game last week. I'm not going to knock him, but it's a very weird mixture at this point in time. You got guys who are like under 25 with guys who are like over 32. It's a weird roster makeup. Don't know what Flanagan's going to do about it, but I think the Broncos bounce back this week, and unfortunately, it'll be 3 losses in a row for the Dragons. Let's go the Broncos, 13 plus. Second Sunday game for round 11 is the Raiders taking on the Titans in Canberra. And no doubt Canberra will be disappointed with their efforts last week. And Ricky Stewart would have given them an almighty spray, I'm guessing, after the second half that they had against the Dogs. And basically, you could say, what the hell was that? That was completely two different games of football. The first half, they were scintillating. They looked like a top two team. They were cutting the Dogs' great defense to ribbons, and it all fell away in the matter of 10 minutes at halftime. They lost the juice. They came out flat, and the Dogs pounced and came away with a emphatic victory in the end. For the Titans, breakthrough victory last week, and no doubt Des is feeling a little bit less pressure. Maybe can sleep a little bit easier at this point in time. But coming into this game against a revved up Raiders side who will have Corey Horsburgh back into the team this week. They lost Matty Nicholson, but they do have Hosking there. And I think Simi Sasangi has actually shown that he can have a few meaningful minutes in the back row as well. So they're not short on back rowers, but Nicholson has been playing some outstanding football. And news is that he has broken his ankle as well, same as Jamin Salmon, which is unfortunate for the young English import. And yeah, as I said, I'm a big fan of Matty Nicholson, was probably on par with some of the best rookies we've had in the league this year as well. But I'm going to back the Raiders to get a victory here. I just don't love... I didn't love the Titans' effort in the first half last week, and yes, they got their breakthrough victory, but is it going to continue? Probably not. Let's go the Raiders to get a win here, 13 plus. Last game of the round, and it is the Tigers taking on the Rabbitos in Campbelltown, a place where the Tigers don't have the greatest record. And for the Rabbitos, you could say this is a game that they could go into with some confidence, having beaten a competition heavyweight in the Broncos last week. And the Tigers, man, they have to be disappointed with the efforts that they put in. Once again, kind of similar to the Raiders last week, but on a way bigger scale. I think everyone had this Tigers team turning the corner, that they would show some effort, that they are done losing games 64-0. But it has happened again. And yes, it's the Storm, and they're probably the best team in the competition. And if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. But they've got to be better in the effort areas. Again, I just didn't see it right from that fourth minute when Pappenhausen scored that try. And I do think that the Rabbitohs are one of those teams that make you play the full 80 minutes. And I worry about the Tigers if they're going to come out with the same attitude that they had last week. No doubt they won't, because that'll be on guys like Luai and Taruva, Galvin to really pick the team up and carry it forward. But like they were so ill-disciplined last week as well. Like the stupid penalties came back in. I thought that was stuff that we were done with in 2024. This was meant to be the 2025 Tigers, the new Tigers. And it all eroded in the space of 1 week. And I'm worried for them. I think Souths actually get a victory this week. I love Jamie Humphries being in the team. He seems to be the winning man. I know that he didn't have too much to do with their victory last week, but when he's in the side, South Sydney seem to win. So I'm going to back South Sydney to get an upset victory here. I think Latrell's really pushing his pencil for Origin as well. Like he's putting his hand up in a massive way. Seems to be one of the only people out there doing that, saying, "Pick me, you idiot." Laurie Daly, but I do think the Rabbitohs get a victory here, 1-12. So that's it for the video this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your tips down in the comment section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week. I will be releasing my Blues and Maroons teams this week, guys, so stay tuned for those videos, and I'll catch you on the next one.